today, I don't know if you saw like actually, I didn't know about the outage until I saw a tweet of people basically complaining. Somebody was making fun of people saying one person was like saying their doorbell was not working because AWS is down, and another person was saying their robot vacuum, and I hopefully not an iRobot vacuum because they're great. But maybe another company their vacuum just was not working because AWS was down. And it's just like I think that kind of highlights a little bit of a ridiculousness of these smart devices, which is like in the best case scenario, they like make your life a little bit better. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
the smart doorbell, okay? It makes your life a little bit better than a normal doorbell, right? You can see who's at the door, but to be honest, is that a huge benefit? I think some people will say maybe. But in the worst case scenario, it makes your life so much worse because now your doorbell doesn't even work. It just...
I mean, I'm sure you have a bigger point about this, but I totally 100% agree with this because I think, well, first of all, that just seems like bad design. Like there should be a fallback.
It's totally
to work
bad
as a regular doorbell.
Is it maybe because it's so easy to make these things now that anyone can make them and they just rely on services like Amazon, right?
Like for example, like the August lock or whatever, right? Like or any of these smart locks. At least they have a mechanical part to it. If it dies, you can still physically lock your door, right? Like I feel like the basic, like if the internet goes down, you should still be able to use your doorbell. So that's one thing. I think that seems a really poor design. Secondly, though, I think a really big maybe not a problem, but something we don't talk about enough is like. So we talk about, like the advancement of technology, but there are, and I'm sure a lot of other people have talked about this, like I'm sure this is not an original thought, but I think we don't really realize like certain costs involved, right? So what I mean by that is like the best example I can give is directions written on a piece of paper versus like Google Maps on your phone, right? And no question, the amount of information and recalculation of routes and up-to-date traffic data and all that stuff is way more information than a pen and paper of directions, right? Like no question, you can't argue that. But one thing you can't argue either is that maybe like this can be described in multiple ways, but reliability of pen and paper in the sense of say like it doesn't ever run out of batteries. It doesn't lose a data connection. It doesn't require you to pre-plan it does require you to pre-plan, but like, there's a lot of things that a device is susceptible to that pen and paper are not, right? Like running out of battery, right? Like no matter where you are, no matter what your cell phone signal is, no matter how much battery you have in phone, pen and paper will always work, right? Yeah. And it's like, so when you talk about like Google Maps being better than pen and paper, yes, no question. There's a lot of things that it's better at, but it's not better at in terms of certain like reliability categories, right?
Yeah.
So anyways.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like, I think that just shows you that as much as technology has let us do things better, right? In a lot of cases, when it doesn't work, right? The downside to that is a lot more severe than the benefit, if that makes sense, right?
Yes.
Because
totally.
I think as like you can say Google Maps amazing, but I feel like if you gave people a choice between deciding, okay, what is a bigger deal that you don't have to use a map, or that if your battery is dead, you're completely lost, right? Like I think a lot of people would say that not being able to get any directions is probably the worst outcome.
Yes.
And given the choice between the two, you would just deal with a paper map. So, I think so my long running kind of criticism with a lot of these, there's a few different terms for it, like, smart home things, home automation, Internet of Things is, again, I think it's great because technology has allowed a lot of like the barrier to come down so that it's really easy to do these things, right? And that's why there's so many, I don't know how many different like smart switches and things are on the market. There's a ton now, right? And that's great because, this gives you lots of options and the prices come down. But I just feel like we're still in a state with home automation, and I'm surprised it hasn't evolve faster than it has, where a lot of it, 10 years from now, may hopefully, not longer than that, we'll look back and just be like, oh, we simply made these things because we could, not because they were good or necessary. They're just like, no one needs these things, but because you can make it. And I feel like a lot of these smart devices, they're like 80% novelty that, oh, I can do this. Not that it actually, is hugely beneficial to your life. It's just like, oh, look what I can do from my phone, right? And that's fine. I think there's a certain amount of, I'm totally for delight and whimsy in technology, because sometimes you just need something to do something that has no function other than it's joyful, right?
Yeah, totally.
But that's the thing. I think a lot of like home automation, again, what it should be is almost invisible, right? Like you should be able to automate everything and, your life to be surrounded by really intelligent devices and products, but it should be invisible and you shouldn't have to do work to get, the value out of it, which is actually the big criticism I have with any of these, voice-based assistants. And I know they've gotten better, but they've always felt like you've had to do so much work just to get the result. You know what I mean? Because even requesting with voice, and even when it works, which it doesn't happen sometimes it just doesn't work, and then you're like, you have to like say it again, and then it just doesn't understand or it does something else. It's just really tricky because if I am trying to command something to turn on or off the lights, right? It's cool when that works, but I feel like the benefit of that over just me touching the light switch is like super marginal. And then when it doesn't work, and even if it's 20% of the time it doesn't work, that's enough that like all that benefit goes out the window, right? Because then you're just frustrated. And then you're like, oh, why are my lights not coming on? Like, and I'm guilty of this because like, and I obviously love technology and I try to automate a lot of things. We have these blinds, smart blinds, and it's great because, like I can, in the morning, it opens up, right? And cool, like the benefit in theory is great, but every now and then at like 4 a.m, they'll just randomly open. And it's just it's like, at that point, that almost negates any of the benefits you get from it whenever it's just, and you don't know why. It's just like, you're like, okay, I can't troubleshoot this, right? Because somewhere in some integration, somewhere there's like some sort of bug and you can't do anything about it. So,
and you're right. I think it is a result of a very low barrier to entry to develop these things, right? And not really think them through, right? And kind of going back to, these kind of older devices and older methods, like a working doorbell, is I think these things had inherent, and what I mean by inherent is like not explicitly designed benefits, right? Like reliability, right? It's almost like, remember when traffic lights went to LED, and one of the things that they didn't account for was that these really bright burning lights, these old school lights, would melt snow. And then when they went to LED, the LED,
I actually didn't know this. That's interesting.
Yeah. So apparently one of the issues was like, okay, awesome, LED, it's brighter, it's more power efficient, But when snow builds up on it, it's like, it doesn't melt, right? And it's not like we designed those old incandescent bulbs to melt snow, but they had this inherent benefit that we didn't really think about, right? Yeah. And I think the inherent benefit that we don't think about with non-smart devices is reliable, predictable usage, right? Yep. Like, how many times have you hit a light switch and it hasn't worked? Like, never. I don't think ever, right?
No.
Like, I've never come across a light switch that didn't work one day. Sorry, worked one day and didn't work another day. I mean, yeah, I've come across light switches that was never hooked up and this and that. But the fact that a light switch worked yesterday and it's not working today, like, that's not the switch. Like, there's a bulb, or it just always works.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you. I think we're definitely doing we did it because we could and not because we should.
And everyone's doing it, which is the issue. And I think the other thing too is most of the companies making this have not realized that yet, and so they're all competing on things that I don't think are, like, they're almost trying to one up each other in terms of like the uselessness, but just because they can, right? So like the next new device that comes out, I would love if there's, a company like a Nest or something came out and their whole thing was just, it always works. And that's it's not very smart, but we just focus on making sure it always works. And we actually don't have any sort of voice assistant stuff and things like that. Our devices are all just, you set it and forget it, right? And that's what it is. And no one's really doing that. Like that's the thing that's crazy to me is just like, I'm surprised we haven't got to that point. And I think your example with the Harmony Hub is really great, because that's an example of, if it works well, you should not know it's there, right?
Yeah.
It should just work. And also it's something that is leading to a very meaningful, maybe not in any individual use, but you probably use that every day or almost every day. Think about how that adds up, right? And so that my favorite devices are like that. Like even all the smart light switches that we have, they're just set up for like, I basically only replace the switches that I use every day, right? Because it's like, cool, like what are the lights I'm turning on at the same time every day, right?
Yeah.
Cool. That's a smart switch now. I never want to like talk to like Siri or anything about it. I'm just going to say at sunset, turn on the light, because I would be doing that anyways. And then I want it to always work. And I almost want to forget that I even installed it. Right. So I think there's just like, but again, like when I bought that light switch, what's on the box? It's like, oh, it supports Google Assistant and Alexa, and it doesn't talk about any of that, right? Like it doesn't talk about you can just, set it and not even know it's there. So yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet, but I feel like in the future, we're going to look back and it's going to be like those novel technologies where like, why did they make that? Why did they do all that stuff?
You know what I think it is though? It kind of is like, what's missing is like the Apple philosophy, right? Like if you look at Apple devices, I think they historically have been lacking a lot of the kind of features that we kind of hope for, right? Like when the iPhone came out, there's no copy and paste. When like the Apple TV's out, and one of the big criticisms about Apple TV is that, it doesn't support all HDR formats, and like it doesn't support 4K YouTube and all this stuff like that. But like you get surprised at like how incredible everything that is there works, right? Like I was blown away. I don't know if you've ever gone through this, because I don't know if you've had a receiver since you've had an Apple TV, but like to pair your Apple TV remote with a receiver is like insane. Like the user experience is like so quick and so fast, and there's like no codes to enter. There's no setup. It's just like, just hold the volume up button on your thing and we'll figure it out. And then you just see these like meters jump, and it's like, we've got it, and we talk about like AirPods Pro and all this stuff like that. And I think about like how, like, so today, okay, I didn't have Apple Pay set up on my iPad. Okay, so one of the wicked benefits of iOS, Dave, you should definitely listen to this. So what? Okay, one of my things I love about iOS. Okay, right now it's such a small thing, but everything's going two-factor authentication, right? And two-factor authentication sucks because it's like, it's extra security at the cost of convenience, right? Security always battles with convenience, right?
Yeah.
But what I love about iOS, and I'm sure you love this too, is the fact that when you get the text message with your code, it automatically appears on your software keyboard, right? So you tap the software keyboard, it enters it automatically for you. You don't have to retype, you don't have to copy, whatever, okay? I recently learned also that this also exists in Safari. I didn't realize this on Mac OS, like, because I use Chrome. So I didn't realize this actually appears in Mac OS as well, which is really nice. So this is all really nice. But they took it even a step further. Like, I don't know if you know this, but like there's certain apps, like, so today I was adding Apple Pay, right? So the wallet, where I added, so I get two-factor authentication. Like I didn't even have to tap that software number, the number that came up on my keyboard. Like the text message came in. I didn't even notice the text message came in. Like it was like do not disturb or something like that. They automatically grabbed the phone. They automatically grabbed the 6-digit number, input it, and it hit submit. I didn't even see it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just like, it's so amazingly seamless and perfect. And don't get me wrong, Apple screws it up a lot, but there's so many times where Apple just does it so perfectly, right? And we don't notice it because we don't necessarily interact with all those features, right? Like you said, like if you have an older, I can't remember. You have an older Apple TV, right? You don't have the app installer and like
No, yeah.
whatever. Yeah. So like, I mean, most people who bought that Apple TV and most the things that the way things are going right now, like, I mean, you don't have a receiver. So it's a feature that no one will really interact with, right? Yet they spent all this time making it such a perfect seamless like thing, right? So I think it's the opposite of Apple philosophy, where it's just like, let's just pile all these features in, regardless of if they work nicely or not, right?
Yeah.
And no one, you're right, no one's taken the time to be like, okay, let's just do this one thing, but do it really well. And we were hoping that was Nest, but you know, they messed that up too.
Yeah, so that was unfortunate, and I mean, I'll give some criticism to Apple here. Like, I think, okay, out of all the, I don't know what you call them, you know, they're the home automation platforms. Like, all the companies have them. Apple has HomeKit, right?
Yeah,
it is the best one so far, mostly because what you're saying, there are a lot of limitations, but I think that's for a reason, right? Like, I think Apple with HomeKit, they're purposely limiting things and trying to hold a pretty high bar, and so that the devices that do support HomeKit, you know, do generally work better. But my one criticism here is I think that that is great, but it's not really accelerating getting to this better spot, because I think if they really wanted to do that correctly, they would be making some of these devices, right?
Yes.
And then that would be the ultimate, where they would actually be making, you know, smart switches, right? Their own smart lights and things like that, their own doorbells, right? So I think that's kind of the, like, I don't know why they haven't. I'm sure they have good reason, but that's my one criticism is, like, I don't know why they've kind of like half committed to it. But I think if they really wanted to do it right, it seems like there's a huge opportunity for them to come in, and maybe they're going to do that. I feel like things like the HomePod is maybe a little bit of a step in that direction.
Well, that's what I wonder. I'm wondering if they're kind of laying down the groundwork right now. It's like, okay, HomeKit's going to be in place, the HomePod's going to be in place, the Apple TV's going to be in place, and then they're going to kind of come in with their hardware, right?
Accessories and
yeah.
So anyways, that was that's my rant.